Hey there, and welcome back to another Miraculous Ladybug Season 2 Retrospective review, where I go through old episodes of Miraculous I never made a video on, and I give my thoughts. Season 2's been so far on a pretty hot streak of top-tier content, and I'm pretty excited to see this one today as well. We've arrived at Anansi, which serves as the debut for yet another core member of the Miraculers, as Nino's given the turtle Miraculous to become the hero Carapace. I remember this one being fun and popular when it came out all those years ago, and I'm super keen to take a look at it today. We start off the episode following Nino and Alya at her place, where they're playing one of those dancing games that were all the rage back in the day. Do they still make stuff like Just Dance anymore? All those dance/sing/play in a band at home games were such a moment in time. I just wonder how dated this reference has become. Maybe it's not dated at all and I'm simply way more out of touch these days. Who really knows for sure? They're really kicking ass at the game, and you can see that in the background Marinette's there watching, whilst Adrian's also there over FaceTime on somebody's phone. As soon as I saw Adrian's tiny little face, I just burst out laughing. It's such an absurd thing he has to do in order to do something as simple as hanging out with his friends. Gabe really just was the worst dad ever, wasn't he? The pair talk about how the two are so in sync, and that Adrian wishes he could find somebody that he could share that sort of thing with, but until his dad lets him go out more, it's probably not going to happen. I think my favourite part of this conversation is that they don't force Marinette to be a social disgrace. This is something that happens a lot more as you go along the show, but I think Season 2 hits that sweet spot. She's still clearly shy and can mix up her words, but it isn't completely crippling, and she can get comfortable with him too. Nino does the big finish, and my god, he really is committed to this game. Look at that pose. I think my ligaments would tear if I tried something like that. At this point, Alya's sister enters the room, and yeah, she's a bit of an asshole and way cringier than I remember her being. She comes in and makes fun of Nino's excellent dancing, which is unfair, then brags about how she knocked somebody out in the first round of her amateur kickboxing match, before getting annoyed at Alya for calling her Nora because she decided she wants her nickname to be Anansi whilst posing for everybody. Already this character just seems absolutely cringe, right? Taking a folklore figure's name for your own because you're too cool for your actual name? Not that changing your name's bad or anything, it's just, the reason here is that she thinks it sounds badass. She then asks why Alya's friends are even still there, which is kind of rude because they are guests and it's not like Nora owns this house or anything. She goes on to drink straight out of the carton of milk, which everybody knows is disgusting, and even though she finishes it here, you just know she probably does that and then puts it back if there's still milk inside. From here, she says that Alya's not allowed to go out with her friends and calls them all disparaging nicknames instead of their actual names, despite the fact that Alya's parents are both happy for her to go out. Here we can see that she's massively controlling, claiming that she knows best and there's been too many akumatized villain attacks lately, and thus Alya would be in danger. After all, Alya's been directly attacked by various villains numerous times, and so she's safer at home. My annoyance had already picked up by this point because her character is so abrasive, but also really relatable, right? I think the way they constructed this character early on was really clever. Everybody knows this type of I know best douchebag, and thus you can really identify with Alya or Marinette or whatever because these types of people are so annoying and insufferable. Anyway, Alya refutes her claims by reminding her that the twins were akumatized at home before, with Nora then claiming she would have been able to stop it with her kickboxing skills. Here we learn that she once beat up Mr. Banana in the street for no other reason than she thought he was an akumatized villain trying to turn Alya into a banana zombie, even though he was just handing out flyers. Normally, I'd feel bad for Mr. Banana here, but I'm pretty sure subsequent episodes have revealed that he's a bit of a dickhead, and so I think I feel like the worst person you know just made a great point meme. Nora sucks, but I'm not going to complain about Mr. Banana copying it either. Marinette tries to claim that Ladybug and Cat Noir would always be able to keep them safe if there was a villain attack, but Nora brushes this off despite their undefeated track record up to this point, which causes Nino to step up and claim he could protect Alya if he had to. She of course scoffs at him for this and makes fun of his dancing again. I really hate this character so much. I'd forgotten how much she sucks and how arrogant she is. Nino gets upset and says that he would do anything to protect Alya, and so Nora challenges him to an arm wrestling contest. If he wins, she'll let Alya go out tonight, but if he loses, she has to stay. Adrian, being a good friend, begs him not to humiliate himself by agreeing to this because Anansi's too strong, and he thinks they'll be able to think of a different solution. Maybe this does seem like a little bit of a bad friend moment for doubting him, but to be honest, he isn't wrong, and it would have led to Nino feeling like shit after being defeated if they didn't cheat. I also love that when Adrian's on the phone trying to talk to Marinette and look up at her, he stares up as if he's looking out of the phone, but in reality, this would mean he's in his bedroom staring at the ceiling for quite literally no reason. There's nothing up there. It's such a goofy gag, and I really love these airhead Adrian moments. They add so much to his character and make him seem so endearing. Knowing that they're running out of time until the fireworks, Marinette decides that Nino is gonna arm wrestle Nora, although she does sell him a bit short here, doesn't she? She claims that Nino's gonna prove his worth because love and friendship make your muscles bulge, but at the same time, she's very clearly not impressed with his physique. It's a bit rough, but regardless of her lack of enthusiasm in that regard, Nino gets hyped up by the support, and the battle begins with Adrian as the judge. Of course, when they begin, he can't even make her budge, even a little bit, while she just holds him in place. This is a classic trope that I feel happens in almost every arm wrestling contest in cartoon history. As she's getting ready to put him out of his misery, Marinette enacts her plan. She calls out that there's an Akuma behind Nora, and whilst Nora, Nino, and Alya are all distracted, Marinette adds her weight to Nino's hand to defeat her, and Adrian goes along with it to call the victory, because there's no way he didn't see this. Now, normally you might say, oh, these are dodgy tactics, but you know what? She deserved to get cheated out of a victory by being weird and overprotective. In Season 6, we learn that Alya has had to attend therapy in the past, and to be honest, I would not be shocked if it's due to her. She's just the worst. Of course, she tries to contest it, but Alya actually stands up to her and slaps her down before storming out and beckoning Nino and Marinette to follow along with her. Alya yelling at her after those opening minutes of her completely killing the excitement of her sister and her friends was so satisfying, and of course, it causes her to sulk, much like any bully. This is where Gabe makes his move and akumatizes her into Anansi, whilst our group make their way to the Ferris wheel and watch the fireworks. I thought it was really cute that Adrian's still on the line just watching the fireworks through a phone. I doubt it would even feel all that impressive in this context, but he just wants to be part of it all. It's so sweet. This really is the golden age of Adrian Agreste, isn't it? No wonder he became such a popular character. I think they've made a lot of really great strides in Season 6, but hopefully we can one day look back and see that they have restored the vibe, so to speak. 3 of our group are pretty happy watching the fireworks, but Nino, not so much. He's clearly down because I'm guessing he knows he didn't beat Nora fair and square, and he wouldn't have been able to protect Alya from an akumatized villain if it came down to it from his strength alone. Not that anybody could, I think, but it would still feel bad, I guess. Adrian then thanks them for showing him the fireworks before he notices something moving behind Marinette and warns her. The Ferris wheel stops, and poor old Nino panics and clutches onto Alya and cops a little bit of lighthearted teasing as a result. I have to say, this would be a nightmare villain for me. A halfway point between a human and a spider? Absolutely no thank you. Especially since she gets those extra eyes, is super big and strong and fast and crawls. Ugh. I would be unconscious on the ground, foaming at the mouth as soon as she got up to the section of the Ferris wheel I was in. There's a pretty funny moment where Adrian panics and pretends like his Wi-Fi's on the fritz to try to disconnect from the call and suit up, and by the time he arrives to help, Anansi has ripped their box? Carriage? What the hell do you call it? Regardless of what it is, she rips it off the Ferris wheel and dumps it on the ground, which is when Cat Noir arrives to fight. He actually does pretty well for himself here. If it was Season 3 or 4, she would have smacked him around a little bit and Ladybug would have to swoop in to save him, but this is Season 2. Doesn't work like that yet. He doesn't get blitzed and humiliated, and indeed the actual battle ends in a stalemate. They manage to go toe-to-toe with each other for a little while until Cat Noir has to leave the battle to save the citizens on the out-of-control Ferris wheel, which gives Anansi enough time to grab Alya, taunt Nino, and challenge him to a fight and go off to make her lair. I will say that whilst it was nice not to see Cat Noir get absolutely humbled, at the same time, these early seasons battles can be so slow and dull sometimes. I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's just not on the level you come to expect when you're hitting Season 6, or even some of the later seasons of the first saga. Nino goes off to try to fight her and tells Marinette that he doesn't need her help to prove he's strong, which of course makes Marinette feel bad, but to be honest, I don't think she did anything wrong, if you ask me. I mean, let's be real, there was no chance he'd defeat Nora in a one-on-one arm wrestling contest, and it seemed that despite Nora having no authority over her, Alya wasn't going to go against her until she thought that Nino won fair and square. Thus, to prevent the night they planned being ruined, Marinette stepped up and made it happen. I get it's a matter of pride for Nino, but at the same time, she did nothing wrong, and she should not feel bad. It's not like it's a real sport. It was a bullshit contest set by somebody who knew she would win in order to control somebody. They don't owe her a fair contest, especially since she already knew it wasn't a fair contest given she's older and stronger than them to begin with. Marinette powers up into Ladybug, and we cut back over to Cat Noir, who's still trying to stop the out-of-control Ferris wheel, which is about to crash into the river. He notices a set of lion statues with open mouths, and so he tosses his staff in between them, lodged in their mouths, which is enough to stop the momentum. I understand his staff being strong enough to do this because in the end, it's created by his Miraculers, and thus it's magic. However, it does beg the question of what the hell are those statues made of to be able to stop a giant metal wheel that weighs hundreds of tons? I would have just thought they would shatter or crumble. I guess it's just one of those things, right? As Cat Noir finishes rescuing the passengers, Ladybug arrives and off they go to fight Anansi. This is where we get another look at Nino, who in the meantime had managed to make it all the way to Anansi's lair, where Alya's located, and credit to him, when confronted with the villain, he does square up and try to fight. He utterly fails, because of course he did, but at least he tried. In response to his utter bravery, Anansi decides to outright kill him by throwing him a huge distance into the sky and away from where she's standing. And so lucky for him, Ladybug arrives just in that moment to catch him. She puts him on the ground and tells him to leave it to the professionals, which feels like the worst thing you could possibly say here, right? She knows that earlier on when she helped him beat Nora in the arm wrestling contest, it made him feel weak and pathetic, like he wouldn't be able to help Alya if it came down to it. When he tries to prove himself, he gets slapped down and then told to sit down by a hero. Ouch. How is that ever going to work out? Then again, I guess this is part of her story arc for the episode. She realizes Nino needs to be able to prove himself, which paves the way for her to choose him as a hero. Our heroes charge in, and you know what? Scratch what I said about Cat Noir doing well for himself across the course of season 2, because you can already see it beginning. He lasts a couple of seconds before he gets blasted across the battlefield. Ladybug jumps over to him and says she's going to distract Anansi and he can go save Alya. They have to dodge some cars that she tosses at them, which was fun. Sometimes that first clash with a villain, they'll just stand there while the heroes talk and come up with a plan at a distance. Here though, she's getting involved in throwing things and putting the heroes under pressure, which makes a lot of sense and actually makes her seem more intimidating. Here we come to the full Cat Noir cringe though. Ladybug manages to hang in there and fight with Anansi, but Cat Noir for some reason jumps onto a spider web, which is famously sticky, and then gets stuck there. I understand needing him out of the way in order for Ladybug to resort to getting the Turtle Miraculous to give to Nino, but at the same time, they could have done this so much better. This makes him seem like an incompetent idiot. I think it would have been better if he goes to save Alya, only to turn back and see Ladybug's in trouble and Anansi is about to land a finishing blow. He charges in and knocks Ladybug out of the way, and then he gets punched into the web. This would have made Anansi seem more dangerous by beating her down to begin with, and thus become a stronger threat for Ladybug to later overcome, but it would have also allowed for Cat Noir to be taken out of the action in a way that makes much more sense and doesn't make him look so stupid. I mean, Ladybug only lasts another couple of seconds before she gets hammer tossed and gets a little bit stuck in webs a little ways away, so you could have easily had that happen when he knocked her out of the way. Anansi goes to steal Cat Noir's Miraculous whilst Ladybug manages to free herself, and Nino returns to the scene of the fight. Ladybug uses her lucky charm and gets a candle, which she takes as a suggestion to go and find Master Fu. Meanwhile, Cat Noir manages to get an arm free and uses his staff to try to hit Anansi, but she yanks it away and it lands near Ladybug and Nino. Nino's feeling a little bit down by this point, but Ladybug tells him that when fighting a supervillain, strength doesn't matter. Instead, it's courage and determination that will win the day. My god, it's so easy for her to say, isn't it? She's telling him to go fight a super with only Cat Noir's staff and no powers of his own. Remember what happened in his first fight with Anansi? He got launched into the air and was moments away from becoming a smear on the pavement. Meanwhile, Cat Noir was punched so hard, he smashed into a car a fair distance away and left a dent. A blow like that would kill Nino. Ladybug got hammer tossed over the top of a car, bouncing off it and then onto the pavement, which would probably break Nino's bones. I just can't believe she leaves him here to die. Imagine being poor old Gabe here as well. In all that time that Ladybug and Nino were talking, there was ample opportunity for Anansi to steal Cat Noir's Miraculous, and yet she forgets that his Miraculous is a ring rather than earrings, which gives Nino time to challenge her once again. Dude's brave, I'll give him that. Ladybug makes her way over to see Master Fu and gets the Turtle Miraculous, which is when we cut back to the battle with Anansi and Nino. Unlike their first encounter where she disposed of him immediately, here it seems she's decided she's going to toy with him. If I was Gabe, I would be raging at her to take him out pronto and go get that damn Miraculous. I swear he used to be able to somewhat hurt them using his powers to intimidate them into doing what he wants them to do. Maybe he needs to bring that one back. Finally, Gabe intervenes and he tells Anansi to get ahead in the game, but Nino sneak attacks her once again, which pisses her off, and so she beats his ass. But like Homer Simpson in his short-lived boxing career, no matter how much punishment she's dishing out on him, he keeps getting back up. I will say that Nino is coming across as a major Chad in this episode. Does anybody else feel like we need this Nino to come back in season 6? He used to feel so awesome and important, but now he mostly feels like comic relief. He's far more compelling this way, where he's a little bit of both. Anansi finally gets rid of him, and Ladybug swoops in to save him, and is moments away from getting Cat Noir's ring. However, despite being largely useless in this latter half of the episode, he does manage to fend her off with quick thinking, activating his cataclysm so she can't touch his hand and take the ring. Yes, this means he's now on a time limit, but at the same time, it's better than nothing. Anansi lays down on her web to wait for the power to run out, and for Cat Noir to de-transform, and so Ladybug realizes she too is on a time crunch, and asks Nino to help out once more, but this time as a hero. She gives him the Turtle Miraculous, and he and Waze power up. The theme music they gave him here goes so hard, and his costume is awesome too. This is exactly why back in the day he was my favorite character of all the main heroes. Once again, I will say that they have to revitalize his modern character and bring him back to his peak. Ladybug uses her lucky charm and gets some boxing gloves, which at first look are a terrible tool. After all, Anansi's walloped the heroes again and again by this point. There's no chance they could take her in a head-to-head like that. Maybe I'm completely full of shit though, because it does seem like that's their plan. Carapace runs in to distract Anansi and take all her punches on the shield, whilst Ladybug uses her yo-yo to set up a boxing ring. Here she straight up challenges Anansi to a one-on-one boxing match, with the stipulation being that if Ladybug wins, she gets the prisoners, and if Anansi wins, she gets the Miraculouses. I actually thought this was a really creative fight, and instead of being your typical punch-punch-kick type of battle that features heavily in the early years of Miraculous, it felt more like a video game boss battle, where you have to trick the boss into smashing into the four corners of the ring. By doing Doing this, she weakens the structural integrity of the arch, and my god, if her punches were doing this to solid rock, how the hell is Nino alive after such a beatdown? I also like that at no point does it ever look like Ladybug can properly win the fight. All she's doing is dodging and taunting to make her more angry, and when she does get hit, it even ragdolls her and sends her flying. She knows that whatever she does, it won't be enough, and so she has to rely on the building collapsing on her to win the day. She succeeds in this goal and then zooms up on the web to save Cat Noir, whilst Carapace does the same for Alya, whilst also shielding all of them from the impending carnage using his shelter shield. I also just love that they let the whole building fall down on Anansi. That's what you get for drinking straight from the carton. When saving them, Carapace accidentally calls Ladybug Dude, which alerts Alya to his true identity, although considering Ladybug saved Nino and then returned with a hero, it was pretty obvious it was him anyway. Once free, Cat Noir is thrown at Anansi to cataclysm her helmet, and there was a small margin of error there, imagine if he hit her in the face, and he releases the Akuma to be cleansed by Ladybug, who reverses all the damage. Nino gets his moment to introduce himself on the Lady blog, which was a lot of fun, but not before we had a sweet little moment where Ladybug calls Cat Noir irreplaceable. I will say that Lady Noir moments are some of my favourites of the Love Square dynamic. For me, when they hit, they are some of the most wholesome by far. Hawkmoth of course plots his revenge, and somehow finds a silver lining out of the fact that he lost, and now there's yet another hero standing in his way. Here is where we wrap up the main story of the episode. Nino and Alya get some cute moments where it's made clear that she knows he's Carapace, and that she's proud of him whilst he gets all nervous and flustered. Man, I feel like sometimes I forget how wholesome this pairing was, as it's been around for pretty much day one, and so you start to take it for granted because it's not the new shiny thing, but their development over the seasons is so fun and consistent. In that regard, at the very least, they've always been so well written. Nora apologizes to Nino and acknowledges she was wrong, and that he doesn't have to be a muscle-bound hunk to be strong and protect her sister. Marinette also apologizes and admits to cheating in the arm wrestling contest, and they all decide to go to the ice rink next week to hang out, which we see in the ending slide. I will say this end slide would have been much funnier if Marinette was holding her phone with Adrian on the other side too. It would have made it the perfect ending. Yet another banger episode from season 2. Yeah, I had some issues with the Cat Noir portrayal, but the positives still outweigh the negatives in a big way. It's crazy how many classic episodes season 2 had, isn't it? You can really see why the show blew up so much in those days. Season 1 got people interested, but I think season 2 was what I really remember exploding the fan interest. I'm super keen to see what we get next time, and so with all that being said, these have been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the episode? Did you like it? Hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.